So you spend your entire childhood taking care of others, your parents, your siblings, the house, the emotions, the secrets, and now you're 35, 40, 45, and you still can't say no. You still feel guilty when you rest. You still don't know what you want. Well, there's a word for this. It is called parentification. It's when a child is forced to take on adult responsibilities and emotional burdens that should have never been theirs. You become the parent even before you're done being a kid, and the consequences follow you for decades. I'm going to walk through more than 7 signs that this happened to you. And number 5 is the one that took me 30 years to see, and I'm still struggling with number 7. I'm Eileen, I'm 37, I'm French, and I have lived by myself forever. Welcome to my channel. I will share with you the behind the scenes of my solo life. The good, the bad, and the ugly of my life choices, but mostly the good ones because I do love living by myself. So, you ran the household like an adult, not like a kid, helping out. You weren't just doing chores. You were running the house, going grocery shopping, preparing meals, cleaning up the whole house, not just your room, doing the laundry for everyone, and not as a favor or for pocket money. Some will say that you need to learn those skills at some point, because this is what adult life looks like. And I agree, but I don't like it. However, there's a big difference between learning or helping around the house, like any member of the family, and being the one doing everything. Because if you didn't do it, it didn't get done. Or you weren't given the choice not to do it. You had to do it. It was non-negotiable. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you truly rested? Not scrolled on your phone feeling guilty, like truly rested, taking some time to take care of yourself, to just think, oh, it's only about me today. And it doesn't have to be booking a spa and getting a massage. It could simply be spending the day reading the book you got a few months ago and never had the time to start. Or going for a long day walk with your dog and having a picnic with your dog, or finally finishing this crafty project that you've started someday and put it on the side because you had other priorities. If the answer is I don't know or I can't remember, this sign is yours. You learn at 10 years old that your value was your output. So now, 35, 40, 45, I don't know, sitting still feels like a crime. You became your parents' emotional support system. Well, this one hit personally too hard. Very early on, your mother or your father told or showed you things no child should carry. You were the one they turned to relieve themselves of the problems. And because you didn't know what it was about, that you were not supposed to be the one listening, you couldn't say, no, stop. It's not my place. It's my role to listen to your problems. So you hear about their marriage problem, where you could clearly see that love was never in the picture. Or about the financial fears you had to hear over and over, how difficult it was to make ends meet. Every single spending had to be a need, not a want. Without even being a spoiled kid, you had to feel ashamed for not having what your parents' friends could afford. You hear about their loneliness. You were the 12-year-old sitting on the edge of the bed, consoling a grown adult, or should have been consoling you. So today you are everyone's emotional support. Your friends vent to you for hours, and as a good friend, you listen to them, and even do your best to help them and be there for them. Your partner, if you have one, pours everything on you. Then you realize that it's always a one-way street. You listen. You're there. You are the strong one everyone rely on. But here's a question nobody asks. Who holds you? And if the answer is nobody, this sign is yours. You mediated your parents' fights. You heard the yelling, the screams, and sometimes even worse. You knew that just being in the room was sometimes enough to diffuse the fight between adults. You learn early on to enter a room with a pit in your stomach, an ache in your chest, while scanning the room to take the temperature, to feel the mood, so you can be ready to deal with it. But you were only 8, 9, 10 maybe, and today you still do it. You enter the room, you scan, and you read the energy before anyone speaks. You analyze characters, patterns, so you know how to deal with each and every person. You know who's upset before they know themselves. And somewhere deep down, you feel responsible for fixing it. This is hypervigilance. It kept you safe as a child, but it is exhausting as an adult. You were praised for being mature, but it covered up neglect. You see you're so mature for your age. Such a responsible little girl. Oh, she's an old soul. It feels like a compliment when you're a child, but it's not. And this is why it's so disorienting. Because it seems like a praise, something to be proud of, and finally something positive in your life. But what they were actually saying was, this child has learned to suppress their needs so well that they seem like a small adult. And you wore it like an armor. I used to say that I had built a fortress hidden behind layers of thick walls. Looking back, I can't really remember when I stopped being a normal child, because I always felt I was the outsider of the family, my friends, my colleagues. And let me explain to you why the mature compliment is toxic. They praise you for being impressively responsible for your age, while leaving you emotionally unsupported. And you never see that you were being used because you were told you were exceptional. Today, you're the one who handles everything at work, possibly even taking responsibilities that are not yours. You never ask for help. You never ask for a raise. You never ask for recognition. You just do it. Because this is how you were raised to be. To do without asking or hoping for much in return. Just because it was normal. And you wait still for someone to notice. That is not ambition. That's a wound-wearing suit. You raise your siblings instead of being their sibling. Parenting siblings is listed as a textbook sign of instrumental parentification. Not playing with them, but functioning as a second or, I would say, third parent. It's not just waking them up, getting them ready in the morning, getting breakfast ready, or putting them to bed at night. Because in a way, I didn't do all of that, but dropping them at school, picking them up after school, helping with homework, going to parent-teacher meetings, and then the next level is to fill the emotional void their parents left. What does it look like? It's defending them against bullies at school, whether they were kids or teachers, because the only thing they ever heard from their parents was, it will pass. It is putting your own life on hold because their parents never made the hardest choice for them, but the best for their children, just out of comfort or to keep up appearances. It's being the one they call when something goes really, really wrong, because when they call you, you don't instantly put the blame on them. And here's what it does as an adult. You attract people who need saving. In friendship and in love, you gravitate toward emotionally immature people. Not because you want to, because it's the only role you were taught. The caretaker, the fixer, the one who holds it all together while someone else falls apart. And one day you look around and you realize everyone in your life takes, but nobody gives, until you are the one falling apart, because everyone lets you carry the weight of their problems so they can move on with their own life. But no one helps you carry the weight of your own problems. Working and providing for parents, siblings, or the household is one of the clearest signs of instrumental parentification. And it's very distinct from a normal teen job for spending money. You might think that because your parents raised you, provided a roof, food, clothing, education, it is completely normal to financially help them as soon as possible, whether they ask for it or not. But it's not. It is parents' responsibilities to provide for their children, not the other way around. And I get it, some situations are pretty hard to live, especially after a divorce. The income is not the same, but the expenses are. But there is a slight difference in situations. Helping a parent struggling to pay rent after being left with not much is one thing. I'm not saying that this is or this was your role to do so. The second parent should provide for your needs, but helping because you feel that it is your responsibility to provide when your parents should is something else. It is a burden you shouldn't have to carry. And I get it. You probably didn't do it for your parents. You probably did it for your siblings, especially if you are the eldest one. And your parents knew that. And this is why they never stopped you from doing it, because you were the one everyone relied on, even financially. Addiction, mental illness, abuse, financial ruin, whatever it was, you knew and you said nothing. You learned to suffer in silence because of the shame those secrets create. And you ended up isolating yourself from others for your own safety. You know things. You saw things, but you can't talk about it. And it was not even about you, but you still feel ashamed. What if others knew? What would they think about me? They'll judge me because it's my family, my parents, my relatives. I get that. My family is so messed up that I've been keeping so much for so many years because I fear judgment. And in the meantime, they are acting completely different in public. Like it never happened. Like you were neither the victim or the lies and secrets, and no one to talk about it. So today you don't ask for help. You handle everything alone, in silence. Because asking would be admitting that something's wrong and exposing yourself. And because you've learned the consequences of speaking up, you're too scared to do it, even though it was not your fault. You don't actually know how to feel or what you need. I do believe that this sign needs a whole video. By taking upon a role that is not yours early in life, you don't get to know who you truly are and what your needs are once you're an adult. Every ounce of attention was directed to managing someone else's emotion, caring about everyone else but yourself. So you never had the time or the emotional space to put yourself first. So if you have a dry blank when being asked what you like, your dreams, your preferences, well, it's not because you're shallow. It's because for your own survival, this question was never relevant. And it's the same about emotions. I have a hard time expressing what I feel. I am always holding back. And at first, I thought it was because of my personality. Not everyone expresses themselves the same way, but I realized that it was not just my personality. It was because no one ever considered my feelings, whether they were good feelings or bad feelings, because I was not seen as myself, but as a child being raised to fill a void or to fulfill a mission, being a successful trophy on someone's ego shelf. And the conclusion is devastating. You were useful before you were allowed to be you. Your stress showed up in your body, not just in your mind. Migraines, stomach aches, unexplained pain, fatigue that sleep doesn't fix. If you get to sleep, I must say I dream about getting more than 5 hours of sleep every night. There were signs, pains that no doctors could ever heal because there was nothing, no clear medical cause, except maybe the diagnosis is just stress. But when you spend years of your young life being under sustained emotional pressure, your body expresses it directly. The lack of sleep, the sensitive stomach, the eating disorder, the headaches, the chest pain, that's your body crying for help. And just to be clear, because there are some very simplistic thinkers here, the parentification can cause all of this, but the lack of sleep, the sensitive stomach, the eating disorders, the headaches, the chest pain, and so much more are not caused only by parentification. The thumb is a finger, but not all fingers are a thumb, if you see what I mean. You had little to no time for friends or just being a kid. This does not speak to me the way I'm going to explain it to you, and it's okay. You do not have to check all the signs, okay? So as a child with heavy responsibilities, there was no room for fun, for seeing your friends. For you, not getting home right after school wasn't an option because you had to pick up your siblings and get them home safely, feed them, help them with their homework while trying to do yours while handling house chores. Outside activities were also scarce, except if your achievement could serve the family. And because you were not living on the same timeline as the other kids of your age, you had very few friends, probably outsiders like you. And you carried this into adulthood because you felt the gap between your coworkers and yourself. You felt that they didn't carry the same weight. And you probably even feel less than them because you didn't get to do this or that, or you didn't get to have this or that as a kid. You realize that you were watching life happening in front of your eyes through this one-way glass. You were seeing everyone, but no one was seeing you, and no one could hear you. You were not stuck under a glass ceiling, but in a tinted glass box. Here's one that's hard to admit. You have an irrational, bold, deep terror of doing something wrong, of being unprepared, of being seen as incompetent. A typo in an email and you spiral. A criticism at work and you can't sleep. Somewhere inside of you, there's a voice saying, if I make one mistake, everything collapses. That voice isn't yours. It's programmed. When you were 8 and cooked dinner, you couldn't burn the food because then nobody ate. When you were 10 and managing your siblings, you couldn't lose your patience because then the house fell apart. So you learned that mistakes aren't just mistakes. They are dangerous. So today you over-prepare, you triple-check, you never delegate. Because if someone else messes up, you will blame yourself for trusting them. And when you do fail, which is inevitable, you're human after all, punish yourself in ways you would never punish anyone else. This is perfectionism. Yes, but it is not ambition. It is survival, and it is exhausting you. So I want to say something directly to you. If you check off 5, 6, 7 of those signs, maybe all 12, I need you to know one thing. None of this was your fault. You did not choose to be the parent while still being a child. You did what you had to do to survive, and you did it the best way you can. It was not your role. It was not your responsibility. You were not prepared for it. But survival mode has an expiration date. At 35, 40, 45, more, less, whatever, you are allowed to step out of it. You're allowed to stop caring for everyone. You're allowed to make mistakes and not fall apart. That is a note for myself, actually. You're allowed, for the first time, to put yourself first. The guilt that you feel when you think about it, that voice that says, if it's not perfect, it's worthless, that is not intuition. That's how you've been programmed. And programs can be rewritten. Tell me in the comments, how many of these signs did you recognize? Which one is the hardest? One of the hardest things about being parentified is feeling like nobody understands. But today you know that you're not alone. Thank you for watching this video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.